I love it when the homemade version of something is not only way better than the bought version, but also really easy to make using tools that you've probably already got around the house. I'm talking about these really cool UFO plates that sit under your effects pedal, and that is what I'm going to show you how to make today. These things create some serious pedalboard envy. Actually, I used to run a McPherson Black Boost on my board that had one of these plates fitted, and I had so many people at gigs come up and comment. Okay, let's get into the build. So this is the guy here that I'm going to take off today, the Sonic Research tuner. This is the one that I want to add that plate to. I just think it would be nice to have a little bit more height, and it would be good to make the tuner really stand out. This is actually my gigging board. This is a pretty crazy board. I'm going to have to do a video on it because it is absolutely insane what this can do. I've never seen anything that can do what this can, so I'm going to have to make a video on it. It's got, if I show you over here, it's got a mic input, it's got 2 stereo inputs, and over here it's got 9 outputs. See if you guys can work out what all these are for.
Challenge accepted.
Okay, so first things first, you want to grab a 6mm piece of Perspex acrylic or whatever you can get your hands on. Quite often this stuff you can get for free from a lot of places. Like I did a little bit of time as a boat builder, and we used to have loads of offcuts that used to just go in the skip, and you could probably just get one of those for free if you just asked really nicely. That would be easily big enough to do a pedal, so you could pretty much get it for free. Now you want to lay your pedal on there. I try and line it up with something that's already there, and I like to make it slightly oversized. I mean, it's up to you, but I kind of like it so when I look down at the pedal I can still see the light shining around. And then you just grab a pen like a Sharpie, just going to mark around it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use a hacksaw. Okay, so a hacksaw is the easiest way to cut through this stuff. It just cuts like butter through this material. It's very, very easy to cut. And I'm going to cut all the way along here right to the end, just because I know I can fit another pedal on there, so that'll be quite nice to be able to do another one really easily down the line. Now, if you're wondering why this is brown and not clear, it's because it's got like a protective layer on it. But you know what? You don't really have to worry too much about that if it gets scratches and marks, as you'll see later on. Anyway, let's just cut along there, and then I'll cut down this side and I'll show you those next steps. Okay, so I've cut up my little chunk. Now I just want to sort of square up these sides on with some sandpaper and something really flat. So I use a piece of glass, but you can use a piece of MDF or whatever, and I just stick the sandpaper to it. Honestly, it doesn't take much because this stuff sands and cuts really easy. When sanding this stuff, you should do it in a really well ventilated area too. The dust, breathing in the dust is not very good for you. We've got pretty good airflow in here today, so I'm pretty happy. Nice. Okay, so now we're just going to round these corners. Now, some people like the corners to be squared off. I mean, it kind of looks cool when you just put a nice, like squared edge. It can look quite cool, but I like to round them. Really hate dust. Alright. Okay, they clean up. Definitely got to change that sandpaper. It's been on there way too long. So this is what you'll kind of look like. See, it's just a nice, fairly basic rounded rectangle. And it's going to fit this slightly oversized on here. So that's perfect. So now we've got to prepare the lid, because you can sort of see the lid on most effects pedals. There's this ridge in here, and we have to remove that ridge. Now this is the bit that puts a lot of people off, because I think it's going to be a lot of hard work, but it's really, really easy to do. I used to do it with needle files, and it probably took about 15 minutes with those. With a proper, like, decent file like this one here with a fairly aggressive cut, it is pretty freaking easy to get rid of that whole ridge all the way around. So we're just going to take that ridge or that lip all the way around here. We have to take that off. Okay, so all you got to do is lay your base down. This stuff's going to get pretty much munched, and just start filing. Oh man, this one is super easy. So I've already taken that down by about half with about 3 passes of that file. So let's continue with that now. I'm just going to speed this up, and then we're going to get to the next bit. So this is what it looks like now. You can see that I've taken the edge completely off, and it's perfectly flat right all the way around. So you're just going to keep going nice and slow until you get off. I mean, it probably only took me around about 10 minutes. When you're filing this aluminium, it just comes away really, really easily. So make sure you take your time. You don't want to go too crazy on it, but just get that ridge off and she'll be ready to go. That's the bit that most people freak out about. It's actually really easy to do. Anyway, next step. I've taken off that protective stuff. You don't really need it on anyway. Like I said, it doesn't really matter if it gets scratched up, because we're going to be frosting this thing a little later on anyway. And now you're going to put that lid on there and see how it fits nice and flush. It looks awesome. So next you want to mark out where these holes are going to go. So I just check all the way around. I want it to sort of sit slightly over. Put a bit of pressure in there, and then you just, let me just see if that's square. Yep, that looks good. And you just mark where all these holes are. The other thing I like to do is mark the orientation. So I'm going to put a little mark on here and a little mark on here, just so I know which way around the lid goes, because generally it fits better the way that you marked it. So next we're going to drill these out. So we're going to drill these out to, what size is this? It's normally 4mm. That's the usual size, but first you're going to want to pilot these. Let me just show you, hold on. Okay, so first things first, you want to drill some pilot holes. Now, you don't want a slow speed for this. I've found the slow speed just makes that drill grab really badly. So you do want a faster sort of speed. Now, you don't need a drill press, you can just do this with a normal drill if you're nice and steady and keep it nice and straight. Always put your safety glasses on, you know, all that sort of stuff. Such a tidy freak. Right, so that's the pilots drilled out now. So nice small, what did I do, 2.5mm holes. Now I'm going to drill those out to 4. Often it's 4mm, but with this particular pedal it's 3.5. Just slightly larger than the size of the screw or bolt that goes through. Now when you do this one, the last one, you want to do one side and then the other. So what I did then was I drilled a little bit into one side, and now I'm going to finish it off all the way through from this side. This just helps stop this Perspex from cracking, because if you just try and shove a large drill all the way through, it can easily crack. Here we go. All nice and drilled out. So let's measure the next section up. I might just do it here because it will be easier. Let's turn this light on. Okay, so now we have to just measure a center point. Let me just clean it up. So let me get my ruler. There we go. So there. So I've got approximately center. Right, now I want to do a pilot hole again. Beautiful. And now we're going to use a 5mm drill, because the LED that we're going to be using is a 5mm LED. So I want it to fit sort of nice and snug in this hole. This is where the LED is going to fit. Now let's do the same thing again. Okay, so let's drill a little bit on one side and then a little bit on the other. Cool, there we go. Now we've got a nice little 5mm hole pretty much in the center, and that's exactly where we want it to be. Okay, so let's get to the next part, which is sort of frosting this up, and then we're going to prep that LED assembly. Next, just grab a piece of 220 grit sandpaper, something around there, and just start sort of sanding the outside. Just roughly sanding. You don't have to do anything in particular. So what this does, you don't really have to get too fussy on this, but what it does is it stops the light leaking out the sides of the plate. So it pushes more of the light towards these edges. Nice, then do the other side. So check that out. You can obviously see now it looks super frosted. So that's why it didn't really matter if you scratched it up. We're going to scratch the heck out of it anyway. But that is pretty much ready to go. And so you can still see the little mark that I put in this side too to line that plate up. For this particular pedal, I want this ring to be blue. So I'm going to use a blue LED. I've got one of these ultra bright, clear, blue LEDs here. Now you need to diffuse this as well, so you want to get your sandpaper, same sort of thing, just scuff it up. That looks good. So see, now it's all diffused, and that does the same thing. It helps the light emit more out the sides. You don't want it sort of streaming out the top of the LED, you want it coming out the sides more into this plate here. We also have to sand the top of this LED, because look, when I pop it through the hole here, look at that, it sort of pops out the other side. So you need to sand that so it's pretty much flush on that side. So let's just do that now. Just going to sand it on here. These sand pretty quick. Right, so check that out now. I've got that little flat top on my LED, so when I push it through, it's pretty much flush. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you just definitely don't want it sticking out as much as that. Right, next step now, we're going to be doing the LED assembly part. So that's joining all the resistors, well, the resistor and the wires onto this LED before we solder it into the pedal. Okay, so here's my favorite bit, the soldering part. So we're going to need to sort out this LED so we can just put it straight into that enclosure and she'll be all ready to go. So you've got two legs on your LED. You've got a long one and a short one. The long one is the anode or the positive leg, so we're going to snip it. And now I'm going to tin that leg. Now I want to put a little resistor on there, so I'm going to put a 470R. I want as much brightness as I can. That's going to be sort of getting close to the max of this one. Snip the resistor. You've got to tin that resistor as well. I like to put the resistor on this leg and then just sort of have them sort of side by side. Yeah, it's not bad. Cool. And then we're gonna snip that leg. And same on this side. We're just gonna snip it to be the exact same length as that resistor on that side. There we go. So that is our anode and cathode. Right now we're gonna put the wires on. So red is gonna go on that resistor because that's my positive lead. Same sort of thing. You wanna tin this end of this resistor. Let's tin this side as well while I'm here. Same sort of thing. Just sort of line it up. The two exposed pieces are sitting sort of parallel to each other. All right, strip this. Black wire now, so same sort of deal. I tin even pre-tinned wire. I'm weird like that. Okay, so that's it there ready to go. So now I'm just going to cover these in heat shrink just to keep them well insulated, and then we're going to solder it into that pedal. Okay, this is the last bit, wiring in the LED. Now first you've got to find your DC jack. There's two on this pedal because it's a tuner pedal, and there are 3 lugs holding that DC jack on. Now this one here, the one closest to the edge of the enclosure, that's almost always your positive, and this one here, this one is your negative. This one is the battery connection. Now just double check that. Most effects pedals are negative center, and that will be how they're arranged on almost every single pedal. So this is going to be somewhere around the middle here. So I'm going to cut a little bit longer. Now I'm going to strip these guys. You want to just tin everything. I'm going to solder to this one here. Honestly, once you've done one of these, you're going to just be like, this was so freaking easy. Right. Cool, so we've just soldered onto those positive and negative lugs. Right, let's just do a quick test now. Always just testing as you go is the way to go. This LED should go when I plug it in. It does, beautiful. Right, test over. The last bit is just assembling it all together. Okay, so we're gonna get this around about in the right spot. Let's pop this into here, work out where it's gonna sit. Right, now I like to use a piece of foam, but you can use a piece of anything, insulation tape. I just like having something adding a little bit of pressure to the other side of this. That's sitting on there, and then your cover just fits on top of that, just like so. Now you're going to need some longer bolts. So the original bolts were countersunk this size. Often I like to stick with countersunk. I've got these panhead ones which I think will fit down into that countersunk area. Now most enclosures are an imperial size. I'll chuck that up on screen now because I can't remember off the top of my head. A great countersunk screw that works perfectly with most of those enclosures is a single coil pickup height adjuster screw, which you can get at most guitar places. Cool. Now that's on. Let's do a quick test. Nice. Okay, so let's chuck it on the board and see how it looks in there. All right, moment of truth now. Yeah, that looks great. Now I've got an extra video over at my website for our Plus members over there. Now we're going to be discussing how you can make this light plate brighter using different construction methods, how to make it reactive so it reacts to your playing, also how to get some custom colors going on, things like that. So if you're a Plus member, go over there and check it out. There's also free accounts over there as well. I've got links down in the description. I've got loads of really interesting projects on the way and really cool things planned for this channel. So if you haven't already, please subscribe. Have a great week, and we'll catch you in the next video.